Thank you, everyone, for joining us. My name is Laura McNamara. I'm the Executive Director of the East Providence Area Chamber, and I'm happy to be here for the 11th Annual Watchemoket Square Week. This is an event that the Chamber started with some other organizations in the Watchemoket Square area, in the East Providence Historical Society, and Wendy Wood and Gordon Hubbard, and a group of interested folks that wanted to see the revitalization of Watchemoket Square. And we're pleased to say we're now in our 11th year, and there's a lot going on that we'd like to share with you this evening. So we have Jim Moran, the Chief Economic Planner for the City of East Providence, and Bill Fazioli, the Director of the East Providence Economic Development and Planning Department. Mayor De Silva is going to be popping into the conversation shortly. So why don't we get started? Bill, are you going to be doing the presentation, or Jim, who wants to start?
Jim's going to go ahead and run through the PowerPoint and be happy to answer questions as we go along.
Okay, great. Before I forget, I do want to mention our sponsors of this event too, most importantly, before we get started, if I can just take a moment for that. Our gold sponsor is Monroe Dairy. Our supporting sponsors, Santander Bank. Our silver sponsors are Brown Medicine, Brown Physicians, Navigant Credit Union, Woods Heating Service, Washington Trust, the Taunton Avenue and Newport Avenue branches, and our brown sponsors are Aspen Aerogels, Pod Swimming, and Verizon. And we thank you so much for their support and for helping us with this event. And I'll turn it over to Jim now.
Thanks, Laura. And that list that you just read off is a number of familiar names, and I really appreciate their sponsorship, and a lot of great companies on that list. Thank you. So basically, this presentation has a number of slides. Some of them are going to be, kind of busy a little bit, but the nature of these slides are really to kind of generate discussion and questions. So I think the real theme of this presentation would be that if there are questions, then you can certainly bring them up and we'll try to answer them as we go. I put together information that I think is useful for everybody as to what I think are important things that are happening down in the square right now. Bill and I kind of looked this over and kind of determined this was a good product to get the conversation going, and some of the major themes that are going on in the square at the present time, and certainly is an exciting time. And the first slide that you're going to see is kind of relating to the original study that goes back to 2019, where we hired Beta to put together a revitalization study and come up with a variety of goals and recommendations to improve the square, to improve tourism, to make it a more of a place that people are going to be desirous to visit, and to create a variety of interesting and meaningful uses down there that are going to attract visitors and maybe residents as well. So, it would be really a big difference in terms of turning the square from properties that was kind of divided by I-195 and really bringing it back to a state where it's kind of the buzz of the central part of East Providence, and a great segue if you're coming in from Providence to see a very vibrant Watchemoket Square. So Beta came in and basically prepared a study. If people may recall, some of the attendees may have actually attended the event at the Tockwatton on the waterfront, and it was a very well attended event to kick off the study. We received a lot of comments from the public. You can see from the pictures that there were a lot of people in attendance providing some really good feedback. And the study, if it's of interest to those to go and visit and look at the study, there is a link here in the slide below. I know, Laura, you're going to be posting this after the event. So if people are interested, they could hit that link. They could also go to the East Providence Business.com webpage, and there's a link on that page under the projects that they can get to that study and read all of the reports and all the findings that are provided in that report. So I know most people aren't going to be able to jot that link down easily, but it provides a good link to get to that study and to look through it. The slide above shows a couple of interesting things. One is the actual intersection itself, and you can see how Watchemoket Square is located on the right side of that photo. You can also see the ramp structure and how that works. I'll be going a little bit more into the ramps that are going to help to improve that waterfront, a new ramp on the westbound side of the interstate there. So that'll be coming up on a future slide. But I just wanted to indicate that monies for this study were provided through the U.S. Economic Development Administration. And even though that was not a large grant, it was able to provide money to complete the study and to generate some very important recommendations that are going to be a really big part of how we were going to create a sense of place for the Watchemoket Square area. And the other thing that I think this has done is it's also had a great impact in terms of arts and entertainment, the growth of the arts district. The interest in art in East Providence has really taken off in the past 5 years, especially. There are a number of groups that have come together, the East Providence Arts Council, and worked to develop legislation that actually created the East Providence Arts District, which is kind of shown in that map. The boundaries are shown in that map. And as it says on the slide here, artists, writers, and composers within the Arts District are exempt from income tax and from taxes on the sale of their work if they live and operate out of the East Providence Arts District. So those are certainly wonderful things that are really helpful to the square in promoting the arts. Placemaking. Sometimes as you read through that report, you oftentimes see the statement of placemaking and how placemaking can really change a location, how it can create vibrancy and vibrant places, and it focuses on transforming public spaces to create connections where people can get together and gather for a variety of activities and to enjoy themselves. And it really has a very important process involved in making a community a better place to live, a better place to work, and a place to enjoy yourself with a variety of activities. Activities can include things like festivals, business-sponsored events, and doing things like bring affordable and quality housing into those areas so that people can not only visit those locations, but they can potentially live there as well. And so what I'm showing that picture to the right is an outdoor festival that's located in Fort Worth, Texas. And you can see that the events that are going on there, not only do they have a wonderful downtown courtyard there, but they're actually using it to create festival activities that are going to help people to get downtown, enjoy themselves, and build that vibrancy through placemaking. So you'll hear that very often in the beta study, and it's something that the city is trying to encourage for our downtown at Watchemoket Square. And not only that too, but into the Taunton Avenue area as well, because that's an important corridor for the city also.
Jim, can I just interrupt for a moment?
Yeah.
Someone typed in that they couldn't see it. Is anyone else having difficulty seeing the slides? If you could just put in the chat, yes, I can see it, or no, I can't see it. That would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay, if they're, yeah, I'm sorry if they're not. It says I am screen sharing, so hopefully I hope everybody can see this.
No issue seeing the slides.
Most everybody's having a,
Yes, I can see. Okay. I can see. Okay.
okay, so most people are coming back saying that they can see it?
Yeah, other people can see it. I'm not sure why that person can't see it, but check. I don't know what. I don't know
Sorry
why
to hear
you
that.
check. Maybe log out and come back in again, or just listen in and then check the video later on after we post it.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Okay, so the EDA grant that we received and the study that we did basically came up with some important findings and kind of short-term recommendations for what we wanted to do to really kind of build excitement to the square and make it easier to navigate through people who are visiting, to help them be able to enjoy the square. And some of the things that were identified were welcome signage and wayfinding signage, also branding signage. Public parking, there have been indications that public parking would really help as the square and areas around the square kind of build up and more people visit. We're going to have the need for more off-street parking. We're taking efforts and making efforts to see more off-street parking to promote visits. Kind of strengthening walkability, trying to make better connections between places like the square and Bold Point, Tuckwonton on the waterfront. all of the venues that are potentially down there. The East Providence Yacht Club is down by the waterfront, trying to create more walkability for people who want to get around in the square and kind of know where they're going as a result of wayfinding and other signs that help them. The Arts Council was certainly mentioned and working. I know that there's been a lot of efforts with the city working with the Waterfront Commission and the Arts Council to come up with some great ideas that are going to improve, bring art to the community and bring art to the square. And I'll be covering those in a slide or two down the road here. And then just to give a quick shout out to Commerce. Commerce gave us a grant to cover some of the improvements that are going on down there, including the Soofa Signs, which I'll mention, and our art kiosks, which will also be mentioned in this presentation. Okay, now these next few slides really aren't, I'm not going to go through these all, but these kind of represent what the strategies for revitalization are, who would be responsible for them, short-term, mid-term, and long-term strategies to get the square, some of the things that are needed to improve revitalize the square, and everything from creating arts and culture anchors, a robust public art program, which we've talked about a little bit, branding, artist and studio space, district events, creation of an open air market. And if you look at these kind of ideas that they're coming up with, you kind of see that the study is talking about the things that really make a place, and that place-making aspect we're talking about. High quality public spaces, outdoor dining hub, outdoor dining spaces in parks, facilities that recruit new restaurants. I think, the more restaurants, you look at Atwell's Avenue in Providence, I think more restaurants in an area actually are good for everyone. It's like a harbor with all boats rising when you have a lot of good restaurant choices, and that's certainly something we want to see more of in the square. Dock and dine destinations, that was something that came up. We need to take more advantage of our waterfront that's there. So maybe there would be potential to have dock and dine options where people could bring their boats up, put them into slips that they could get off and walk into the square, enjoy dinner, and then head back out to their boat and go back home. So those are interesting concepts that would get people to the square in very creative ways. Creating more waterfront amenities, attract outdoor recreation businesses like kayak rentals, for example, or other things where people could utilize the types of things like, again, kayaks to get out onto the water and enjoy the water in those ways. Private boat rentals, perhaps, other things that would get people out onto the water. Bike destinations, as we know, bicycles and the use of bicycles is really growing rapidly, especially with the younger cohorts in our population. So we're trying to promote additional bike opportunities, better connections, and the study does create a number of options to try to improve bike transportation through the square and to create better connections. And then, of course, the business environment. Again, some of the things we talked about at dining, proactive steps for redevelopment, and then developing potentially private-public partnerships, because in the budget conscious world we're in today, oftentimes you need to have public-private partnerships to make things work. Just an example from the study, I wanted to put this in here to show a landscape architect's thoughts on what the intersection in the square might look like. If you're familiar with this area, so I'm sure all you are. This is the intersection of Waterfront Drive and Moran Avenue. And you can see that it basically uses a number of features to kind of improve the visual aspects of the intersection. There are bump outs on the sidewalks, making it easier for pedestrians to cross. There's signage, there's landscaping, and other improvements that could potentially be part of this this corner. So I just included that to show something that as an example of what was in the report. Another example of something that was in the report and is a big part of a recommendation was to have welcome signage and branding signage. So you're kind of covering two things here. That sign at the top shows where we're proposing to have a location for a new sign, welcoming folks to Watchemoket Square, and potentially having some sort of a branding feature as part of that sign. So that particular sign that you see there is just an idea. There would be probably some sort of a branding competition. We were thinking of a branding competition to come up with some ideas on how we might want to brand the square. And this is just an example that Beta provided as a possibility. The other thing that's interesting about this is you see that they do some interesting painting of the facades under the bridges, the concrete facades. They're kind of stark. And we were all, as part of this report, was also some thoughts about whether or not there could be art placed on these bridge abutments to make it a better look and more welcoming environment for people coming in. And then down below, getting back into the bicycle discussion, you can see that there's room for potentially to have connections that would take you from the First Street area where bikes currently go and carry them down further and closer to the waterfront. So these are some ideas that were placed in the report as recommendations that might be able to be done and create those better bike connections. The Washington Bridge, we hear a lot about the improvements that are happening in our highway systems. Two of our biggest projects, one that we're living right now and people are experiencing, is the Henderson Bridge improvements, and those are going along well. And the second part of the big projects that are happening on our waterfront is the I-195 Washington Bridge improvements. And the biggest thing I think you see in this image, and that one down on the lower left isn't exactly clear, but it does show a westbound off-ramp from the I-195 interstate corridor, which is really a game changer for the square, because instead of folks having to get off at Broadway, take a left onto Broadway, and then take a right onto Warren, and using a rather convoluted route to get down to the waterfront, they will be able to have direct access down to Waterfront Drive, a quick left, and they will be able to get right into the square very easily. And so we're really looking forward to this ramp being constructed. And based on what DOT is telling us and the schedule that they put together, the ramp is expected to be completed by the end of the year in 2023. So that's a couple of years off, but certainly going to be a big game changer for the waterfront.
Jim, I have a question about that. On that image, it's not too clear, but that exit, is that going to be similar to the Broadway exit where it bears to the right off of 195 West and then comes to the intersection, or is it just going to, how is that going to be set up? Do you know?
Yeah, one of the things that's not particularly clear here, and I probably should have given a little bit better of an explanation about it, but Valley Street, as a result of this ramp, one of the things that's going to happen is Valley Street is going to close. And you'll see at the end there, right, there's a kind of a turning radius where people can take a right, and then they'll take a left out at that terminus there. There's no discussion for a traffic signal there at this point, but that's where vehicles would come down. They would actually, if you see that current Taunton Avenue, the on-ramp from Taunton Avenue to I-195, that would be a tunnel that goes underneath the ramp. So you basically would come in off that ramp, you'd go through a tunnel that goes under the on-ramp from Taunton Avenue to the highway, and then it would cross over Valley Street, which would be closed as a result of this, and then it would continue down to Waterfront Drive, that's where the connection would be. The segment of Valley Street, I could probably, if you can see my mouse here going up and down, this portion of Valley Street would be closed, and the resulting intersection at Warren Avenue and Valley Street would look dramatically different. The other thing that happens here that would be kind of a benefit to having Valley Street closed at this area would be that you could basically combine this park where the Redmond path drops down to Warren Avenue and the sculpture park, which is located here. You'd basically be able to have a continuous park that would extend from the sculpture park all the way up to the ramps at near exit 1D. So that would be pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
And I think it would be, again, a situation where some people have mixed feelings about Valley Street closing, but I do think that it would make that intersection safer. And I think, there are options for reusing that portion of Valley Street for other things that might be a good options. And we're still working on what kind of options they could have there. But if you go into the Beta study report, they actually talk about creating some public space under there that would be, interesting. There's some graphics that are in that report that show that could certainly be one of the options that you could use for under that bridge abutment there.
Awesome,
Did
thank
that
you.
answer your question, Laura?
It does, yes. Yeah, it's helpful.
Okay. The residents at Bull Point, you take a look at the original building and what it looked like. And of course, it was a successful business. It was a car dealership going back, I don't know, back to the post-war days, and a building that had a variety of uses after that. And, from a standpoint of where we were headed in the square, one thing we did need was more residences, more the ability to attract more young residents, especially to our community. And Kent Lorenz, who came to our city looking for projects, identified this as a great location to build what he had in mind. And you can see in the completed project below that there are two phases actually to the project. The first project phase was 22 units, and that was this front portion that you see right here. And then at a later date, he was able to acquire the residence behind here, which was in pretty poor condition. And he was able to build a second phase that included 12 units. And if you go by there now, you see that's currently under construction. It's approaching completion. And I think it'd be expected that completion would be by late 2021 to early 2022. And one of the things that's really happened with this property is that it was leased out very quickly. The rentals were very quickly occupied. So that's certainly a good sign that the public saw this as a desirable location to live. Certainly commuting to Providence is easy. Getting around to everything is pretty easy from this location. So it really was a win-win for Watchemoket Square, I think, for the developer and for the general public as well. It's a much improved view of that area. Oddfellows Hall, basically at the current time, Indigo Holdings is the property owner. They're working through renovation efforts to get this building up to date, improved. You can see in this picture the original 20th century picture with the original cupola on top, which is something to see. It actually throws people when they look at that cupola. They don't immediately realize that that's the Oddfellows Hall because it doesn't have a cupola today, but it did lose its cupola. I'm not sure of the story of how that happened, but it's certainly a distinctive feature. It's too bad it's not there anymore. And then the picture on the lower right is something I took yesterday that kind of shows what it looks like at the facade currently. That color will change. Right now it's just primer, but eventually it's going to be painted to a final color that'll look a little bit better than the gray primer that's on there now. In this image here are some new windows that were installed in the exterior. Interior shots, these are a little dated, but they show kind of what the interior looked like going back in time. You can see some damage in the roof areas. They're going through and they're going to make all these improvements to turn this into a very different place. The lower level, which is in these two shots below, could potentially be used for restaurant space. It could be used for gallery space, retail uses. A variety of different uses could potentially be here. The upper floors could support offices, or if necessary, you could even potentially have residences in this building based on our new mixed use ordinance that was approved for Warren Avenue and our corridors. So there's potentially a lot of uses that could go here.
Jim, could I just add a little bit of information on that?
Sure.
If you want to go back to that slide with the exterior shot, I did
Wow,
hear
wow,
from
wow.
Dawn.
There you go. Yes.
The
exterior shots. Yeah.
yeah, that one. She sent me an email this afternoon. She's out of the area until December, so she couldn't join us tonight. But she did say that initially they were going to keep that grayish color, that current image color, and then she said they're now leaning towards Hague blue from Farrell and Ball. It's kind of a grayish, I want to say charcoal blue. It's a really cool color with black and white striped awnings.
Oh, okay.
They're
Well,
leaning
that's great.
towards that.
Yeah, that's good update. And if you look at that image, I'm looking at the 2018 image, and I'm kind of looking. That's got a kind of a bluish gray kind of color theme to it. Maybe they wanted to capture some of that perhaps? I don't
It's
know.
very dark though. It's almost a black, but it's not black. It's more of a blue black, but
Oh, I see. Okay. And then
if
black and
anybody's-
white awnings?
black and white striped awnings. The color is called Hague, Hague blue, and the manufacturer is Farrow, Farrow, and Ball, Ball. And let's see, what else did she tell me? Oh, retail space. She's hoping to be open by the summer of 2022. And then the apartments and office space will follow after that. And she has some potential tenants right now, but she's still looking for tenants. No one's signed the contract yet. Currently, they have in mind a florist / chocolatier, a cafe, coffee shop, and a bookstore. So those are potential tenants, but she said to let everyone know that they are still considering other options, and no one signed the contract yet, although they're leaning towards it. So if anyone is interested, contact me at the chamber or contact Jim or Bill at City Hall. We can give you Dawn's contact info.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for the information on that, Laura. That's very helpful. And those sound like great uses that any of those uses would be a great asset to, I think, the square in terms of bringing that vibrancy and placemaking we've been talking about a little bit.
Yeah, she did have a restaurant who was ready to go, and then at the last minute, they decided they wanted to buy instead of rent. So that was in the works too at one point.
Yeah, you know, and the one thing I find about being in this profession is that, you know, a lot of times people try their hardest to get certain things to come in, but oftentimes, you know, some things don't work out, but then something that might replace that could be just as good or even better for potential tenants down the road. So hopefully looking forward to seeing some really good tenants coming into the Oddfellows Hall. Moving on to kind of the art related and how East Providence is really exploded in terms of the arts community and the stuff that we've been doing over the past decade or so to promote the arts in the community. I think when I first arrived, there were a number of artists who lived in the city, but a lot of people didn't associate the arts with East Providence. You know, we hear about Providence and Pawtucket and places where a lot of artists lived, but I think there were a lot of artists who are quietly living in our city, but we didn't oftentimes hear that. So I think I'm glad now to hear that we're hearing about the artists who live here. They're active participants in our government, in our business community, in the public, you know, working with all of the residents to try to promote the arts. And so it's really seen some great things happen with the arts community. One of the people who is actually an artist and a fabricator who has his business up in Phillipsdale is Paul Amaral. And Paul has fabricated what we're calling our Lantern Trail art kiosks. That's how they were kind of referenced within the beta study. And these art kiosks are going to be four-sided, as you can see in the images. These are taken from his studio in Phillipsdale. The two on the right are partially complete. The one on the left with my picture there in it is getting close to completion. When they're done, they're going to stand about 14 feet tall. And right now, the scale inside of a building looks kind of big, but when you put those outside, I think the scale would be pretty good for the outdoor environment that they would be placed in. And the beta image kind of shows what their concept was for these art kiosks. And we would be looking to locate them in places throughout Watchemoket Square. There are going to be 3 of them. And we're really trying to figure out where these kiosks could go. They would have, let's say, 4 sides. The panels would be 4 pieces of plywood that would be measured 4 by 8 feet. And the art would be placed on those pieces of plywood. And then art would come in, would be placed on these kiosks. They would be there for a period of time. And then after a period of time, they would be replaced with new art from other local and regional artists. And so the thing that I think is going to be really instrumental is that these are going to be placed in spots where you're going to see people congregating, interesting places where people are going to be able to see them and enjoy them. And I think, you know, the next slide kind of indicates possibly locations where we might want to see these kiosks located. And one of the things I would say to people who are in the chat part of this, we'd love to hear feedback on where people think these art kiosks might be good locations within the square area. And if you look at the numbers and the red numbers, I hope you can see them, and I hope the map is clear enough to show. But one of them shows location at the sculpture park, which would make sense at some location on that property. Number 2 would be over on Burgess Avenue and Warren Avenue. We lease land from the state, and there's a potential to locate a kiosk there, which is immediately across the street from the Oddfellows Hall. Number 3 would be the Redmond drop area where the Redmond path comes down to Warren Avenue. There's a potential to place it in that location. Down by John Lewis Park, which is right on the waterfront, is another location. 5 would be either the Talkwatton on the waterfront public park there, or potentially Bold Point as a potential location. And then 6 I put as other potential sites. There's a site at the corner of First and Moran that's state owned, but it's an interesting location. Right now it's just a wooded park, but there's a possibility that that could become a more valuable park and would be something that might, be in a strategic location for an art kiosk. And then the last place I put one was up on the Veterans Memorial overlook, whether or not that would be something that might be an interesting place to have the art kiosk placed. So if people want to in the chat, or any way they want to reach out to us to indicate where they think might be good ideas to locate these art kiosks, or other places that aren't identified here that you might think be great locations, appreciate any feedback that the group has.
Yeah, and I think the art or the lantern idea came from the East Providence Arts Council. Someone just mentioned that Rich Walters was the person behind that. I'm sure that other people had some ideas too, but we thank him for that.
Yes, that is the source, and we thank him for that, because that was I think if you look in the picture at the January 20th session at the Talkwatton, he was there, and I think he had a lot to say in terms of like the design, what these should look like. And again, Beta kind of picked that up and came up with a concept design that very much follows in that idea venue that he was noting. And then we come to another major aspect of what we consider creating a place and making the square easier to navigate, the branding aspects of things. It's a product called a Soofa sign, and Soofa signs are being used. They're a kind of a high-tech bulletin board, if you will, and they utilize kind of like a Kindle-based product on one side. And then the map, if you see the one on the right, that's actually our East Providence Soofa sign that's located on Taunton Avenue. And it provides a map that shows you kind of where you are, and then some interesting things that are located in the vicinity of that Soofa sign. I probably should have gotten a better picture of the map close up, but you can kind of see the spots that are identified as locations where people would want to congregate. Some of those spots are places like parks and other facilities that people who are visiting the square might like to visit. And then it also has linkages to government center, as I call it, because I think linkages between the Watchemoket Square and the City Hall are important. You get wayfinding assistance through the maps, electronic bulletin boards. One of the things that's cool about this Kindle-based electronic product is that you can provide, the city can post announcements and all kinds of meeting notices, public events that are occurring in the city, any kind of activities that are occurring where you're going to attract residents. People can walk up to that Kindle sign. You can have QR codes that are placed there. If people want to find out more about an event, they can scan the QR code and download information. So it's an interactive bulletin board, if you will. And you can see that woman in that picture is kind of interacting with that bulletin board. She's looking at that case, looks like a T, looks like the MBTA, maybe the schedule. All kinds of things can be posted on these boards to get people word out. The article in the New England Real Estate Journal kind of below talks about they installed one of these signs down by the Fens in Fenway area for people to kind of be to get information that might be happening in the area around the Fens in Boston. And then the other thing too is you have an opportunity for local businesses to advertise on these signs to promote their businesses, to promote, restaurant specials, things that are coming up. Any kind of thing that a business would want to do to promote their business, they can get advertising through the company Soofa, and they basically would do one of two things. They can either advertise on the display, or if they want to sponsor the entire Soofa sign, they can actually sponsor it in a bigger way by having promotional skins, as they call them, placed on the Soofa sign. In this case, on the Brookline case, you can see that there's a variety of things that are noted. I think it's a bank that sponsors that particular Soofa sign. If you look at this particular one on the right, this greenish colored one, this is actually being sponsored in Framingham by Jack's Abbey, which is a pretty cool brew house and located in Framingham. And people who've had Jack's Abbey, they have some products that they sell actually through local liquor establishments. So they've come a long way. And they basically sponsored the entire Soofa signs up in Framingham. And then in the case of Boston, I just showed another image of a sign that's located in the Seaport area, where Harpoon talks about the fact that they brew their beer less than a mile away from the sign. So it's a good promotional sign. And then you can see the cities that I got kind of noted that do it: Boston, City of Miami, Brookline, Massachusetts, and then Revere, Mass. I have a brief video. I don't know if this is going to work, Laura, but I'm going to try it.
Okay.
And hopefully people can see it. And if it works, hooray. If it doesn't, then we'll just continue. So let me see if this works. One moment.
And while Jim's setting that up, we're actually going to have a ribbon cutting for the Soofa sign down on Warren Avenue on Saturday. It's down at 31 Warren Avenue over by the Carmody Connection on the sidewalk. So if you want to join us at 11:30 Saturday morning, we're going to do a ribbon cutting and kind of celebrate a new feature in the area. And it's our in-person event, since we couldn't do anything with in-person for Watchemoket Square Week. So that's our in-person portion of the celebration this year. And you're frozen in time, Jim?
Is it frozen?
I don't see it doing anything on my end.
Okay. It's not working. Okay, so it's a YouTube video. What I'll do is I will back out of this. Let's see.
Now, they could take a look at it when we post it.
Yeah, let me back out of this. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I thought that might work. It's one of those experiments you try on Zoom, and if it doesn't work, you just keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Here's an image of the Watchemoket Sculpture Park. We've also talked a lot about the arts and using the arts as a way of placemaking, and certainly the Sculpture Park has had a huge impact on making that happen. If you remember going back a few years, that park was the staging area for a lot of projects. It was kind of just dirt, not a very good looking corner there. And so we were able to come forward, received funding to turn this into a beautiful sculpture park. And I think in the initial design, it was Kevin Alverson who took care of the design for this. And he did a very good job creating a really scenic sculpture park located in a very prominent location in the square. And then if people are familiar with the artwork that has been there, there was a project called Rigging that was located there. And then there was a blue heron in flight that was also located immediately adjacent to the Rigging sculpture. New artwork has been proposed, and a committee has been established that's going to oversee the artwork. And a request for a proposal did go out in October. The selection committee is going to be reviewing those submissions and going through the selection process. And it's expected that they'll have a decision shortly, and then the artwork would be installed at that location in the winter of 21, early 22. And then the artwork would remain for a period of time, and it's kind of intended to be removed at sometime in late 2023. And I just wanted to do a quick, I know Bull Point Park, the venue at Bull Point Park, the music venue, has been deeply impacted by COVID. But the truth is that that's going to be a huge player in attracting people to our waterfront. They're still talking about the building of a large stage facility that's going to be down there on the key property that will attract a variety of different music venues. If you take a look at all the various types of music that's been coming in on the Bull Park events, is all kinds. You have rock, country. There was a reggae festival a few years back. All kinds of great music venues that are going to be coming. And the developers of the South Key have great intentions to turn that into a wonderful venue for music. And so I just wanted to include that because we haven't had the ability to enjoy a whole lot. There's been a couple of events there, but they will be coming back, and we're going to be seeing some great events that are going to be coming in the future. And we're certainly all looking forward to the investment going forward on that. And then the other thing too is we're working hard to try to see about getting a wind energy laydown area on the key that would support all the renewable energy and the wind energy projects that are going to be moving forward in the next few years all along the eastern seaboard. And we want to become a player in terms of the city offering a potential laydown area for wind energy manufacturing and the storage of these large wind blades that would need to be moved out into the water. So we have a few things to do. We're going to have to do some rezoning, some changes, but we're excited about this port facility being able to support wind energy in the future. So I included that in the end, and that's pretty much it. I'm not sure if I went over in time, but I hope I didn't too much.
No, we're doing good. No, we're doing good, Jim.
Yeah, and Bill, I don't know if you had anything to add to what I said. Went on for a bit, but if you have anything you'd like to add, yeah.
Yeah, just a few things, Jim. I think you did a good job to cover all of the events and activities they're promoting in the square. But I think the biggest thing that we're seeing is that the feedback we got from the residents at Bull Point, Kent Lorenz, did a great job there and immediately jumped on adding new units. He heard that, a lot of the new tenants living there are from outside the city, and they're very attracted to the amenities in the area, the bike path, the ability to walk to eating establishments, the Asian market up the street. They're very attracted to all of that. And I think that's one of the things that the city can certainly build on and replicate in other parts of the community where people want to be able to, live in an area where they could walk and recreate and live and socialize, not necessarily getting in their car to do all of their daily activities. So, we see that there's a lot of potential at Watchemoket Square, and that ability to congregate with people is, very important now. People, we don't go shopping anymore. We don't go to the movies anymore. We don't go to the gym anymore. We do everything online, or we work out at home. People are looking for opportunities to get together, to socialize and have that collective sense of joy and have memories and all of that. And I think East Providence has many, many areas like Watchemoket Square that can fill that need and really become an attractive niche for a lot of people looking to have that lifestyle.
Thank you, Bill. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Someone asked, do you envision having more fireworks with the new venue? Talking about the Waterfront Enterprises project, I guess.
I guess it's possible once they do build a permanent venue, that's a possibility. They would have to work out, whatever permits they need to do that, but that's something that's possible.
And someone earlier had mentioned Soofa Signs could have bus schedules, maybe additional funding from DOT.
Yeah,
there is a feature. There is a feature to add the bus routes on the Twitter feed. So that's something we could think of. There's probably no funding associated with that, but there is that information could be added to the Twitter feed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay, great. I don't have any other questions. I guess you covered everything. It was a really great presentation. We thank everybody for joining us tonight. We thank our sponsors for letting us host this event to the community. And we hope to see you Saturday morning at 11:30 for the new Soofa sign. You can actually see it in person, take a picture with it. And
It's actually in my picture. It's in my background picture. It's right in front of the white wall with the ducks at the.
Right.
It's it's hard to see there, but that's it right there. So it's just outside of the Comedy Connection, right between the right at that corner there. So looking forward to
Right.
see everyone there.
And yeah, there is a lot of, like I said, we could definitely provide opportunities. If you're interested in advertising opportunities, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be happy to connect you with the company. The places that use them up in Brookline and Somerville and all those places in and around Boston, they seem to have a very high rate of return on their advertising, because it's that sort of impulse advertising. Someone's walking by and you can, see a drink special like right in front of you, and you just download something on your phone and you walk right into the establishment. So we're happy to make that possible if you're interested.
So are there two locations now? The one on Warren Avenue and then the one by City Hall? Is that correct?
There's right outside Comedy Connections, one right outside City Hall, across the street from Cafe Zara on the corner there. And then the third one's located just outside the Asiana Market up on Warren Avenue. And so we try to kind of locate them in places where we thought people would congregate. And certainly, between the Comedy Connection and Black Duck, there'd be a lot of congregation there. And the Asiana Markets are very busy. You got Silver Advertising Specialties there. So that's a pretty busy part of Warren Avenue there as well.
Are they synced together? Do they have the same information on each one, or? Okay.
Yes. And they're linked to a variety of feeds at the city level. So if a Twitter post is placed in the Soofa Talk app that we use, it can be posted, and it can happen. There's access from the planning department's Twitter feed that can be placed there. The mayor's office, their Twitter feed also provides links. And then for any kind of important meetings that are coming up, they can be posted as well if there's a big meeting coming up or something that the city wants to get the word out. And they all sync together.
I see. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. We hope next year Watchemoket Square Day week will be in person. We were hoping for that this year, but it didn't work out. But next year there'll be a lot more in place, a lot more things to do. And we look forward to seeing everybody, and have a great year.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Laura,
Bill
for
and
putting this
Jim.
together. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we'll be
Have a good
posting
night.
this, the video from this will be posted on our social media and also on the WatchemokeTSquareDay.com website. You'll be able to find it there as well. So share it with your friends and tell everybody what's happening in Watchemoket Square, because now you know. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.